Welcome to another Liquid Bullet Productions. On the 8th of August 1963, 59 years ago to the date, the Royal Mail train heading from Glasgow to London was robbed. Approximately £2.6 million was stolen. It's now known today as the Great Train Robbery. The robbery crew of 15 men wearing helmets, ski masks and gloves were led by Bruce Reynolds, a known burglar and armed robber. They were aided by two other accomplices, one an insider who was providing the train schedule and what cargo was being carried, and the other person provided the country hideaway, Leatherslade Farm. The robbers stopped the train just north of London by turning off a green track signal and turning on a red signal. The train's fireman went to investigate, and he was captured, unharmed, but unfortunately the engineer was severely injured by a blow to the head as the robbers entered the train. With careful planning, using the information provided by the inside man, who was known as the Ulster Man, and named in 2014 as Patrick McKenna, the robbers escaped with an estimated £2.6 million. They made off with 120 mail bags in Land Rovers. The gang did not use any firearms to carry out this job, but unfortunately Jack Mills, the train driver, was beaten over the head with a metal bar. Mills suffered serious head injuries, and after this he did return to work only doing light duties, but he retired in 1967 and died in 1970, not related to the injuries he'd sustained during the robbery. He never really overcame the trauma though. The gang made good their escape along minor roads, listening for police broadcasts on a VHF radio. The journey took somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour to arrive back at Leatherslade Farm. At around the same time, the first reports of the crime were being made. Back at the farm, they counted the proceeds and divided it into 16 full shares and had several drinks. They were listening to the police-tuned radio, and the gang learned that the police had calculated they had gone to ground within 30 miles radius, rather than dispersing with their haul. This declaration was based on the information given by a witness at the crime scene, who stated that a gang member had told the post office workers not to move for half an hour. The gang realised the police were using a dragnet tactic, and with help from the public would probably soon discover where they were hiding out. This resulted in them planning to leave the farm early. Instead of the Sunday, it was brought forward to the Friday. They had vehicles they had driven they could no longer use. They had been seen by the train staff. Bruce Reynolds and John Daly went and picked up cars, one for Jimmy White and the other for Reynolds, Daly, Biggs and the replacement train driver. Brian Field and his wife Karen and an associate by the name Mark arrived in other vehicles to the farm and drove the remainder of the gang to the Fields' home. Brian Field had arranged with this Mark to carry out a clean-up and set fire to the farm after the robbers had left, to destroy any evidence or fingerprints that may lead back to them. Unfortunately, Brian Field's associate Mark, who was meant to torch the farm to get rid of the evidence, actually didn't do this. And when Charlie Wilson, Buster Edwards, Reynolds, John Daly all found this out, they called Brian Field to a meeting. Charlie Wilson would have killed Field there and then, but he was restrained by the others, and they came up with a plan that they would go back and do it themselves. But unfortunately, before this happened, they learned the police had found their hideout. Chief Superintendent Tommy Butler was appointed head of the police investigation in the London connection, and he quickly formed a 6-man train robbery squad. But the breakthrough came when Detective Chief and Superintendent Milne met a distinguished barrister in a smoking room at a West End club, who told him that he knew somebody that was willing to inform in the gang. The man who came forward as informant was in prison just before the train robbery and was hoping to get parole or some other favours from talking. He didn't know all the names of the people involved, but a second informant, who was a female, came along, and she was able to tell them what the first gentleman wasn't. They ended up with 18 names being passed on to them, which they had to be checked out against the fingerprints that had been collected at Leatherslade Farm. Ronald Arthur Briggs was sentenced to 30 years. Douglas Gordon Goody, 30 years. Charles Frederick Wilson, 30 years. Thomas William Wisby, 30 years. Robert Welsh, 30 years. James Hussey, 30 years. Roy John James, 30 years. Roger John Cordroy, 20 years. Brian Field, 25 years. Leonard Field, 25 years. John Wheater, 3 years. William Ball, 24 years. On the 12th of August 1964, Wilson escaped from Winson Green Prison in Birmingham in under 3 minutes, the escape being considered unprecedented in that a 3-man team had broken into the prison to extricate him. His escape team was never caught, and the leader of the gang, nicknamed Frenchie, disappeared from the London crime scene by the late 1960s. By November 1965, Wilson was in Mexico City visiting old friends Bruce Reynolds and Buster Edwards. Wilson's escape was yet another dramatic twist in the train robbery saga. 11 months after Wilson's escape, in July 1965, Ronnie Biggs escaped from Wandsworth Prison 15 months into his sentence. A furniture van was parked alongside the prison walls, and a ladder was dropped over the 30-foot high wall into the prison during outside exercise time, allowing 4 prisoners to escape, including Biggs. The escape was planned by recently released prisoner Paul Seaborn with the assistance of 2 other ex-cons, Ronnie Leslie and Ronnie Black, with support from Biggs's wife Charmaine. The plot saw 2 other prisoners interfere with the warders and allowed Biggs and friend Eric Flower to escape. Seaborn was later caught by Butler and sentenced to 4.5 years. Ronnie Leslie received 3 years for being the getaway driver, and the 2 other prisoners who took advantage of the Biggs escape were captured after 3 months. Biggs and Flowers paid a significant sum of money to be smuggled to Paris for plastic surgery. Biggs said he had to escape due to the length of the prison sentence and the conditions within the prison. 59 years later, and I believe that only one of the Great Train robbers is still alive. Most spent a lot of years on the run, all spent a lot of years in prison. Was it worth it for that big job? The most infamous robbery in the British crime history? I don't know, but it's one that will never be forgotten. As always, give us a thumbs up if you're enjoying the content. Make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our content. And come find us. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Lots of extra content there for you.